and give him that nose job that he always wanted. Cheers. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. It's Elise Bradley here, and today we're going to be talking about Shayna Hubers. You probably have heard this case before. If you have not heard it, I would be kind of surprised, but my friends actually personally used to hang out with her, which is kind of creepy to think about. I apparently met her a couple of times at parties. I don't recall. Don't judge me on that one. I guess judge me on that one. But before we get into it today, I just want to say, if you are liking this content, please do all the things. Like, subscribe, comment below, but be nice in the comment section, please. And don't forget to hit the bell to get notified every time I upload a new video. All right, now let's get into it. Shayna Hubers is famous for all the wrong reasons, of course. She has been referred to as Jodi Arias. People have very much linked these two women to be very similar in personality, how they were during an interview. They have always been referred to as one another. Like Shayna is like the Jodi. So Shayna Hubers was born April 8th, 1991 in Lexington, Kentucky, where I'm from as well. Shayna was born to Sharon and Robert Hubers. Sharon was a school teacher at Garden Springs Elementary School, and she just so happened to be one of my best friends, fourth grade elementary school teachers. And still to this day, her mother very much still supports Shayna. It's her only daughter. Shayna had no siblings, and Shayna was I would describe her as a type A personality, determined, couldn't take no for an answer, go-getter. She always did very well in school. She was top of her class, and on top of everything else, she was actually beautiful, which it's hard to picture her now as beautiful because when you look her up, man, her one mugshot picture is just awful. It is top 10 worst one I've ever seen. She looks like she'd shoot you in the face a couple of times. She actually attended Paul Laurence Dunbar High School, and she graduated in 2009. She graduated with accolades, and she actually was in a lot of AP classes, which those are advanced placement classes. So she was taking some college level courses, and probably before she even got into college had already received some credits towards her degree. I'm pretty positive she was in drama, which I heard she was very dramatic and knew what she wanted, but people always said that when it came down to boys, she always overreacted. So after graduating Paul Laurence Dunbar High School in 2009, like I said, she went on to attend the University of Kentucky. I attended that school one time. Moving on. So going into the University of Kentucky, Shayna went on to graduate within 3 years. That's really fast. She went on to graduate with a psychology degree, which everybody knows with a psychology degree, there's not much you can do unless you go on further. And she was going to go on to get her master's in school counseling, which makes sense. Her mom was a teacher. She'd probably been around, I'm going to say Fayette County public school system, and knew that that was a route that she was wanting to take. It is interesting with her background and what she would go on to do, that psychology was her major in the first place, and then she was going to counsel people. She did graduate cum laude from the University of Kentucky, so top of the class. I mean, means that her GPA was a 3.5, which good for her. Doesn't really matter now. All that hard work down the drain. It was weird how much Shayna knew about people. So the last place I worked, one of the people I worked with would say, I would be at an apartment pool. Shayna would be there. She would walk over to us and our friends, say hi, like she knew us. She knew details about us that nobody should know. She was younger than me. How did she know things about me? It was creepy. She would be like, you're studying this, you're dating this person. She knew details that like most people wouldn't know about somebody that they weren't friends with. And if they knew it, like knew those details, they probably wouldn't voice it because it would come off creepy. One of my other friends that got close to her at one point, they were in a class together, and my friend was like, she was really intelligent. We kind of clung together and we studied all summer together. She stayed over at my house. We were decent friends. I wouldn't say that we were best friends, but she really helped me in passing that course. But it was honestly during the time that she had met Ryan, and she goes, the way she would react when her and Ryan were on like their, I wouldn't say their crazy train, continuously would repeatedly text him. She just couldn't let things go. She was extremely emotional, very attached, and it was obsessive. My friend did get asked to go into court. My friend declined. She wanted nothing to do with it. Let's get into Ryan. Ryan Carter Poston was born December 30th, 1982, to Sharon Carter and Jay Poston. He was born in Fort Mitchell, Kentucky, which is northern Kentucky to me, and he has 3 younger siblings. Their names are Allison, Elizabeth, and Catherine. Later, his mom would divorce from Jay, his dad, and she would get remarried to a guy named Peter Carter. Ryan was so close to his stepfather that he ended up changing his name to Ryan Carter Poston. So it sounded like the whole family had a very great dynamic with one another, and they were extremely close. They didn't talk much about Ryan's intelligence, but I mean, with his background history, he's pretty smart. I mean, there's no other way to put it. He's got to be a very intelligent person to have accomplished what he had accomplished. Ryan actually went to 3 different schools before graduating high school. So he attended Blessed Sacred Mount High School in Northern Kentucky, and then he went internationally. He attended International School of Melina in the Philippines. I probably butchered that, sorry. And then he actually went to the International School of Geneva in Switzerland before graduating high school. So that's pretty freaking cool. He would then go on to attend Indiana University, where he triple majored in history, geography, and political science. And then he would go on to law school at, I think it's Northern Kentucky University in Highland Heights, where he received his Juris Doctor degree to become a lawyer. And he had a family history of lawyers, and his father was a lawyer and his grandfather was a lawyer. So it's like almost like he was destined to become a lawyer. He became an attorney in Cincinnati, Ohio, which is just right over the bridge from Northern Kentucky. So he was still like in the same area and doing really well for himself. So how the hell did these 2 people meet? They were 80 miles away from each other. Ryan saw this beautiful girl on Facebook. You know, obviously he didn't know what she was going to look like eventually in her mugshot. He actually found Shayna on Facebook, which is hilarious now because everybody uses Instagram and other social media platforms to get in contact with one another, and we have dating apps now. So this obviously was a while ago because we're talking Facebook here. And so they met in March of 2011, and they met because Ryan actually saw her through his step-cousin, Carissa Carlisle. They were mutual friends on Facebook, her and Shayna were. I knew that Ryan friend requested Shayna on Facebook. I did not realize, though, that she reached out to him first. So Shayna reached out to him and said, "How do I know you?" "You're gorgeous, by the way." And he said, "Ha ha ha. Yeah, I think you're good looking as well." Something along the lines of that. And then to eventually meet up, I believe they met up maybe in Ohio, that area, for the first time at a local bar, which she probably would have had to have a fake ID, because I think when they met, he was 28 and she was 20. They meet up and they start this on again, off again relationship that lasts over an 18-month period. It is completely tumultuous. It's neither good for either parties. Family and friends are definitely starting to step in at one point, because when they first meet, it's going really well. They obviously start dating, but then, Shayna starts to become extremely obsessed with Ryan. And when he would respond to one text, she would write him 100 more text messages. The girl would not stop. So just to give you more of an overview of who Shayna is, she would make up stories just to get Ryan's attention. For example, she lied about going to visit her aunt in Hawaii. She had Ryan drop her off at the airport, and she never got on a flight. She never went to Hawaii, but it was probably just a way to drive up, stay the night with him in his condo, have him drop her off. But the best part is she was sending him photos. Obviously, these were probably screenshots, fake photos. They weren't real photos, but that is the lengths that Shayna was willing to go through. They met in 2011, and the whole shooting occurred on October 12th of 2012. I mean, this was not a long relationship at all. And clearly, Shayna is she's got some issues. She's got some issues. But people described Ryan as being nice, kind-hearted, and he wanted to let Shayna down easily. But I don't know how you let anybody down easily that you can clearly tell is mad about you. And he was telling his coworker, I don't know how to basically get rid of her, because every time I try to get rid of her, she cries. She's extremely emotional. She even went so far as to say that she was being hospitalized for a heart condition. She said she had a left ventricular hypertrophy of the heart. She said she got an EKG. She had a list of medications that she said the doctor prescribed her. I mean, girl was doing the most to make sure that Ryan was having sympathy, empathy, hanging out with her, being with her. She wanted nothing more than to be with him. And I don't even know how in love she really was with him, or if she was just in love with the idea of him. Okay, so everything that happens between Shayna and Ryan takes place on October 12th, 2012. The night before Ryan and Shayna got into it, they were actually at Ryan's parents' house watching a debate on October 11th. So after dinner, he pretty much told his stepdad, I'm ending things with Shayna tonight. I actually have a date with somebody else tomorrow on October 12th. So we're done. I've got to get rid of her. She is crazy. She is so obsessed. And I mean, he was telling his friends how crazy she was, and that she was the craziest person he'd ever been with. He told his parents that. They fight all the time. Their relationship, honestly, is not even a relationship. I mean, it's never going to work. So after the dinner, they end up going back to his condo, and he ends up fighting with Shayna. And then at 4 a.m. in the morning, Shayna is on the phone with her mom, Sharon. She was so upset that her mom felt the need to drive an hour and a half, all the way to Ryan's condo. So her mom showed up to, like any parent would, you just want to be there for your kid, especially if they're going through such a hard time. And she shows up to the condo. She notices that not only is she physically upset, but she's like hyperventilating. She's feeling, Shayna's saying that like her chest hurts. She's like it seems like maybe she's going into some sort of panic attack. She's debating on going to the emergency room. But Sharon testified that she thought that her daughter was having a stroke and that she wanted her to go to the emergency room, and Shayna refused to go to the emergency room. So I think Shayna knew that she wasn't having a stroke. I think she was just emotionally in distress. That's my personal opinion. Obviously, I have no idea. But her mom, I think if she was like really having a stroke, they would have probably gone to the emergency room. And I don't think Shayna could have convinced her not to go to the emergency room. I don't think her symptoms sounded like a stroke, but obviously I wasn't there. So that's what Sharon thought. So we'll just say Sharon thought that. But anyways, obviously they don't end up going. They end up packing up all of Shayna's things. And Shayna tells her mom that she is going to stay at a friend's house that night and that her and Ryan are over. And her mom just like gives her an aspirin and tells her like if she starts to feel any sense of what she was feeling earlier that morning to go to the emergency room and get checked out. So Sharon actually has decided that she's going to stay with family members in Xena, Ohio. So she's staying around the area. I don't know how close Xena, Ohio is, so let me know. I have no idea. But basically everything that Shayna says does not turn out to be what she does. She ends up going shopping that day. A person that was working at the store that Shayna was shopping at said that she looked visibly upset. She was emotional. Yeah, I think that she said that she was going to kill him. So Shayna ends up back at Ryan's condo on Friday, October the 12th. And she has found out, which I think she found out on Thursday evening into Friday morning, about him having a date with Audrey Bolton, which was Miss Ohio. They were supposed to meet up that evening for drinks around 9. And obviously he didn't end up showing up, but she's sitting at the bar and she is waiting for Ryan to show up, and she's feeling stood up at this point. She hadn't heard from him and they were supposed to meet at this time. And obviously he didn't show up because he was actually never going to show up. Shayna unfortunately went back to his condo that evening, and one thing led to another, and Ryan ended up getting shot. It's really sad, but Ryan was very much into guns. He liked to go to the shooting range quite often, and he actually had took Shayna to the shooting range, I want to say October 2nd, at the beginning of October. And Shayna even had expressed to a friend, like, I could turn around and shoot him and make it look like an accident. The fact that she said that gave me chills, especially because the gun that did end his life was his own gun. Shayna does have two different stories about how she ended up shooting Ryan. Over the 911 dispatcher, when the phone call was first made, she claimed that Ryan was being verbally and physically abusive to her, and that he had the gun in his hand, and she managed to get the gun out of his hand, then shoot him. That evening, Shayna said on her first interview that there was a struggle because he had picked up the gun and was being abusive verbally and physically to her, pushing her, shoving her, threw her into a bookshelf, and they were struggling back and forth, and then she managed to get the gun, and then she shot him. In another testimony, she said that they were sitting around the dining room table, and that Ryan was, turning the gun around, and he looked at her and pointed the gun at her and was like, what would you do if I shot you? And said, I could kill you and no one would even, I could get away with it, things of that nature. And then she said she started to get up, off, and away from the dining room table. She started to stand up. She started to stand up from the dining room table and move in the direction of the door because she said that she was going to grab her things and she was going to leave. And as she was getting up to leave, he pushed her into the couch, the corner of the couch, and then she fell. And when that happened, she said that she saw Ryan reaching for the gun in the middle of the dining room table. And she just said that she bolted up, like she bolted towards the gun and grabbed it before he could grab it. And then she shot him. There's just conflicting stories. Her stories changed. And when she shot him at close range. She shot him a total of 6 times. And when he fell, she said that he fell flat down onto the dining room table, like head first down. And when he fell down, she saw him twitch. As he was twitching, she knew that he was going to die. So since she knew he was going to die, she didn't want him to suffer. So she thought that it would be fine to shoot him again in close point blank range and put him out like a dog, which is just sick. Because I personally think somebody that is claiming self-defense shoots them to get them down and out of their way so that they can call 911 and get the hell out of Dodge. It gets even better. You're in shock, right? So you might take a couple minutes to call 911 because it sounds like the whole thing has been a situation. Really, it's been a crazy evening. But Shayna, after all this happens, immediately calls her mom. She calls her mom and tell her mom what happened. And her mother had to tell her to call 911, to get off the phone with her and call 911. So it did take Shayna 15 minutes to contact the police. Now, could this have saved Ryan's life? No one really knows. But did Shayna give him a fighting chance to live? Absolutely not. And when Shayna called 911, she proceeded to tell the dispatcher, "I'm not a murderer, ma'am. I don't do this." Well, Shayna, you're a murderer now. And she stated to the dispatcher that it was all in self-defense. But while she was on this phone call, she was basically incriminating herself.
911. Ma'am, I killed my boyfriend in self-defense.
What did you kill him with?
A gun, a loaded gun in the house.
Can you tell me where the gun is right now?
The gun is in the house.
Where at though, ma'am? Tell me where it's at.
I laid it on the bookshelf.
Where are you?
I'm standing about 10 feet from his dead body.
Okay, are you sure that he is dead?
He's dead, ma'am. He's completely dead.
Okay.
Okay, are they going to arrest me?
Ma'am, I don't know what they'll do.
I mean, I'm not a murderer, ma'am. I just killed him.
What happened exactly? What happened?
He beat me and tried to carry me out of the house, and I came back in to get my things, and he was right in front of me, and he reached down and grabbed the gun, and I grabbed it out of his hand and pulled the trigger.
Okay. All right. Do you need an ambulance? Have you been injured?
I'm not injured, ma'am. I was thrown into the side of the couch.
So he slammed you into the couch, but you don't have any injuries?
I don't have any injuries. I was just very frightened. He's a lot bigger than me. He's 6'3", 200 pounds. I'm 5'8", 120. And he picked me up and was carrying me out of the house. And I said, "Let me get my things at least if we're gonna break up." And he wouldn't let me get my things. And when I reached around to try to get my things, he pushed me down from the door all the way to the couch. And when they come here, they'll see how far that is. He threw me across the room. And I was very startled. I was laying on the floor.
Okay. Ma'am, this is what I want you to do, though. You're sure he's not, ma'am, you're sure he's not breathing at all?
Ma'am, and then because he was twitching and I knew he was going to die anyway, and he was making funny noises, I shot him a couple more times just to kill him because I knew he would have been.
I'm sorry, you said you shot him a couple more times after that?
Yeah.
How many times did you shoot him total?
I don't know.
Okay, because he was twitching and you knew he was going to die, so you shot him again?
Enough to make sure he was dead because he was twitching so bad I didn't want to watch him lay there and twitch.
So you shot him instead of calling 911?
After that 911 call, Hubers was brought into the police station in Highland Heights. She was interrogated by police officer Dave, and Hubers indicated that she did want an attorney present before speaking about the situation, and they gave her that right, but then she just decided to tell her story anyways. She did not wait for an attorney to be present, which just basically made her incriminate herself even more. She laughed in situations that you shouldn't laugh in, especially after something like this occurred. It was all very morbid. Even if you didn't feel bad, if you are trying to convince people that you're not crazy, you're doing an awful job. I have to put how she acted in this video because it is just crazy.
The years I've seen people who have been in shock. I've never had anybody tell me that someone pirouettes when they're in shock, that someone sings when they're in shock, that somebody snaps their fingers and says, I did it, when they're in shock.
I did. Yeah, I did.
Sorry, it's really weird. It's just so weird. So they ask her 0 questions, and then she just starts telling them everything. She is like, he always put me down. He told me that I was a hillbilly, that I was not good enough, wanted a nose job, and I gave him that nose job. Yeah, I shot him in the face, and I gave him that nose job that he always wanted. He was so vain. He cared about his looks. He cared about what people thought about him. He was abusive, and he was mean, and I shot him. I did. At one point in her interview, she goes, I have to turn in a paper tomorrow. So how long do you think this is going to take? Because I really do have to do a paper this weekend. It's due Monday. Do you think that I'm going to be going to school on Monday to turn that paper in? You just shot somebody and you're worried about your essay that's due Monday? You should know you 100% ain't going. I'm like, she stayed in the interrogation room poor me. She said, I wonder if anyone's going to want to marry me now that they know that I killed my boyfriend. Obviously got booked into custody, and she was on I think a $1.7 million bond or $1.5 million bond. So clearly with her family and everything, she was not going to get off on bond. And she was booked that night and was going to be going to trial. There was no way around it. She'd already admitted to killing him. The first trial takes place April 2015. So 2 years later, this trial takes place. The initial trial, Shayna did not take the stand. Prosecutors claimed that Shayna was obsessed with Ryan, which the evidence did kind of show she was obsessed. She would send 50 to 100 texts a day. Obviously, it paints a picture that she was way more into the relationship than vice versa. They talked about her showing up randomly at his home, at his work, and they definitely talked to his coworkers and friends, and they all pretty much stated the same story, that Shayna was all about Ryan, and Ryan was trying to let her down easily, which did not work, unfortunately. The trial lasted 2 weeks. The defense team continued to use the domestic claim that Ryan was abusive towards Shayna, but the jury didn't buy it at all. It took them 5 hours to deliberate before finding Shayna Hubers guilty. So it was not very long. After sentencing, Campbell County Circuit Judge Stein said that this was an unfortunate, cold-blooded crime that happened to Poston. Judge Stein gave her 40 years without the eligibility of parole for 34 years. But the following year, they discovered that one of the jurors was actually a convicted felon. And in the state of Kentucky, you cannot be a jury member if you have a felony against you. And basically, they have to do the trial all over again. Shayna's probably thinking this is her opportunity to get a new lawyer, a new way of proceeding. and persuading her case, I bet she's thinking, I bet I can get off this time. I bet I can. Because in the second trial that took place August of 2018, Shayna decides to take the stand this time around. And I don't think it did her many favors. During the second trial, Hubers did decide to hire a different lawyer. His name is David Eldridge. In court, he decided to offer a new defense. Obviously, because the first one did not work. So we can't do the same thing again. It didn't work the first time, probably is not going to work the second time. He decides to focus more on extreme emotional disturbance that led to her psychological state during the murder, making it really uncomfortable for what Shayna was about to say on the stand. Shayna was saying that Ryan was expecting certain acts from Shayna. This makes me uncomfortable. I don't know how to put this without making it sound bad on YouTube, but it probably doesn't sound bad regardless. But she couldn't reach her happy place during acts in the bedroom. But I think you can catch my drift. And he was mad about it. So that was putting emotional stress on their relationship because he needed her to reach a certain point in the bedroom for him to feel happy with her. And that also led to Ryan berating her, whether that be true or not. You still shouldn't shoot somebody 6 times in the face, or 6 times at all. And there just was not a lot of backing to a lot of the things that she was saying. It's not a comfortable conversation to have. Like, this isn't 50 Shades of Grey. Anyways, then they also had a psychologist diagnose Hubers with PTSD and borderline personality disorder. But that was kind of wishy-washy, meaning that this psychologist said this, but then there was some controversy that it wasn't necessarily true. But I think you and I both know she's not all right. I do think she probably does have something going on mentally just because of how far removed she was from the entire situation. But the prosecution came back with plenty of witnesses that lined up with the narrative that it was a cold-blooded, premeditated murder. So the sales clerk overheard Hubers talking to one of her coworkers about how she was going to shoot her boyfriend, and it literally occurred the same day. So that's not really helping Shayna's case. And the verdict of the new trial led to another guilty verdict, but this time Shayna got life in prison without parole. And during the retrial, you know how Shayna said, no one's probably going to marry me if they knew I killed my boyfriend. Not true. So while Shayna was in prison, she actually got married to another inmate, Unique Taylor, that is a transgender woman. But just their love couldn't last. Just couldn't last. And Shayna filed for divorce January 14th, 2019. So not that long. What the filing stated was irretrievably broken. At the end of the day, nobody wins. The family can truly feel like everything is put to rest, that Ryan did get some vindication by Shayna going to jail for life, but it doesn't bring him back at all, and it doesn't change the situation. That family will never see Ryan get married and have kids, which is a hard pill to swallow, especially knowing that somebody prevented that from happening, that somebody took his life. And on the flip side, Shayna's family is also going to continue to suffer as well, because their daughter might be still living, but it's not like they're going to see her accomplish what they probably hoped she would have. So nobody really wins. at the end of the day, no matter the sentencing, Ryan Poston is no longer with us. Everybody lost something the day that Shayna decided to pull the trigger. But I'll see you on the next one. Until then, take care of yourself. Stay safe, stay alert, and stay kind. Bye.